What if there was a business model where you collected your revenue upfront before delivering even a single rupee of service? Where your biggest customers renewed automatically every year without needing the same sales effort again? And where one deal with a 200-person company could bring in the same revenue as selling to 200 individual customers but with a fraction of the effort? That business model is insurance. Plum, a 6-year-old Bangalore startup, has figured out how to run this model better than companies that have been around for decades. In FY24, Plum crossed 41 crore in operating revenue, a 2.5x jump in just 1 year. 93% of that revenue came from one source: insurance commission. Its losses reduced by 54% to 25.5 crore, and the platform now manages over 700 crore in gross premium volume. So the real question is not just what Plum built, it's why the financial architecture behind what they built is so powerful. Because once you understand how money actually moves in this business, you will never look at insurance the same way again. Let's build it from the ground up. India has 63 million SMEs, 15 million gig workers, and over 400 million people in the so-called missing middle. People who fall through the cracks, not covered by government schemes, and still undeserved by private insurance. Together, SMEs contribute nearly 30% of India's GDP, and yet the vast majority of them have little to no insurance. Not because they don't want it, because the product was never really built for them. Traditional insurance in India was designed for large corporations, minimum group size of 10, 20, sometimes even 50 employees, annual lock-ins, weeks of paperwork, policy documents so opaque that almost nobody could actually understand them, and claim settlements that took 45 to 50 days with no real guarantee of outcome. So a 15-person startup hiring the same quality of talent as a Fortune 500 company still could not access the same quality of employee benefits, not because they were less deserving, but because the system was not architectured for their size. Post-COVID, this gap became impossible to ignore. Group health insurance in India is now growing at 20% annually, making it the fastest growing segment in the insurance industry according to IRDAI data. Employees, especially in the startup ecosystem, started treating health coverage as a serious talent retention tool, not just a compliance checkbox. The demand was real, the supply was broken, and Plum walked in directly into that gap. But before we understand what Plum built, we need to understand something more fundamental. Why insurance as a business model is one of the most structurally advantaged models in existence. Most businesses work like this. You spend money to deliver a product or service, then collect revenue after delivery. You buy inventory, then sell it. You run campaigns, then earn customers. You build software, then charge subscriptions. In every case, the cash goes out before the cash comes in. Insurance flips this structure completely. When Plum sells a group health policy to a 100-person company at 5,000 per employee per year, that's 5 lakh collected on day one. But the claim that this premium covers are spread across the next 12 months. The cash comes in first, then service gets delivered over time. That creates a positive working capital from the very first transaction. In simple terms, the business is funded by its customers before it has to do most of the work. And in a world where most companies bleed cash in their early years to fund operations, Plum's model generates cash from the moment a policy is sold. Now layer on the commission structure. Plum is not an insurance underwriter. They are an IRDAI registered direct insurance broker. That distinction is critical. Plum does not carry the claims liability. The insurance company does. Plum earns a commission on every rupee of premium sold. In FY24, that commission revenue stood at 38.46 crores, making up 93% of its total operating revenue. But here is the powerful part. Plum does not need to deploy capital against claims. If claims run high in a given year, the underwriter absorbs that loss. Plum's revenue is the commission, and the commission is locked in the moment the policy is issued. Now think about what this means for capital efficiency. Plum's cost structure is largely technology, people, and sales. There's no claims reserve, no calculated risk sitting on its balance sheet, no capital buffer required for catastrophic losses. In other words, the financial exposure that defines a traditional insurer simply does not exist in Plum's model. Then comes the renewal flywheel. An annual policy by design comes up for renewal every 12 months. So if a company buys a group health policy from Plum in January 2023 and they are satisfied with the experience, they renew again in January 2024. The renewal becomes largely automated. Plum has achieved a 95% customer retention rate, and as that renewal book compounds, the economics get stronger every year. More revenue starts coming from existing customers, less money needs to be spent acquiring the same revenue again. This is the flywheel that makes the model more efficient over time. And here's where Plum's choice to focus on B2B businesses, not individuals, becomes a masterclass in sales efficiency. In retail health insurance, the average premium per policy in India is roughly 8,000 to 15,000 per individual per year. Now compare that with a group health policy. A 100-person company paying 5,000 per employee generates 5 lakhs in annual premium, same sales cycle, one conversation with one HR head or founder, one contract, one onboarding, one renewal relationship. And there's another advantage. When the company grows, Plum grows with it. A startup that has 50 employees today may have 100 employees the next year and 200 employees 3 years later. This is why Plum's go-to-market targets the startup and SME ecosystem specifically. Plum has now onboarded close to 5,000 businesses. Clients include Zomato, Swiggy, Crore, Twilio, and many more. These aren't just logos, they're anchor accounts that grow with the companies themselves, compounding premium volumes year on year. The financial architecture explains the why. What Plum actually built gives you the how. First, they made the product work for customers that the market ignored. Second, they eliminated the claim settlement nightmare. Third, they added wellness to the product envelope. For Plum, this is not just a differentiation, it's an engagement. Here's the honest part. Plum is not profitable yet. In FY24, the company spent 1.71 rupees to earn every rupee of operating revenue. It reported 25.5 crore in losses against 41.3 crore in operating revenue. The bulk of costs are people employee benefits at 54.3 crore, which is 76% of all expenses. This reflects the reality that while the model is structurally advantaged, Plum is still in the investment phase, building a distribution network, a claims team, and a technology stack capable of serving thousands of businesses requires people before it produces full operating leverage. This is why scale matters so much. Abhishek Podar explained it well. If you are running a 1,000 crore premium book and efficiencies reduce costs by even 20%, you can reinvest 200 crore into technology and see immediate returns. But if you are running only a 10 crore premium book, the same level of technology investment can take decades to pay off. That's the unlock. The model works best at volume. And the trajectory is pointing in the right direction. Revenue grew 2.5x in a single year, losses fell 54%, the renewal book is compounding, the path is visible, it has not been fully walked yet, but the direction is clear. So here is what every founder, business owner and investor should take from this. 1. Collect revenue before you deliver product wherever possible. 2. Commission models beat ownership models on capital efficiency when the liability is large. 3. Renewals are the most capital efficient revenue in existence. 4. B2B ticket size changes everything. Plum is not just a better insurance company, it is a case study on how to find a structurally advantaged business model and then build the operational excellence to extract full revenue of that structure. Upfront premium collection, zero claims liability, commission on compounding B2B premiums, annual renewal revenue with near zero resale cost. A claims experience good enough, NPS of 79 versus an industry of 35, that it becomes a referral engine on its own. These are not lucky outcomes. They are the logical result of choosing the right financial architecture and then building technology and product quality that make the architecture compound. The honest picture, Plum is still loss-making. 1.71 rupee per rupee earned in FY24. People are still running ahead of revenue. The structural advantage is real, but it needs to scale to fully express itself. The open question is, Whether Plum can reach that scale, the 1,000 crore premium book their founder describes before the cost of building it outpaces the revenue it generates. Every startup in the insurance space is asking the same question. Plum at least is asking it with the right model underneath them. For now, 5,000 businesses are covered, claims NPS of 79, revenue growing 2.5x year on year, losses falling 54% in 1 year. A business that gets paid before it delivers, earns without owning the risk, and grows because its product is genuinely better than what came before. That is not just a good startup story, that's a masterclass in financial model design. Subscribe for the full series.